Hello everyone, I'm here. I wanted to go through currently what I'm playing and why for each of the maps in Overwatch. Most of my focus right now is on tanks and supports. Basically, I'll play support unless support is somebody else wants to play support, and then I'll play tank. Kind of all depends on what the rest of the team wants to do. Supports tend to be harder to find than tanks, and then tanks are the next hardest to find. So, and it's just what I gravitate towards. So it works out. It works out pretty well because they are needed. So, so there are basically 4 different map types. There's your assault or point capture types, where you're trying to capture a point, or one team's trying to capture a point. And then once they capture it, they move off to a second point to capture, and then they capture the second point before time runs out, or then they win. If you can make time run out on defense, the defense team wins. Then there's payload, where you push the payload from the beginning to end. You push it by being around the payload. If you are on attack and you do this before the time runs out, you win. If you on defense and you run out the time before that happens, you win. And then there's a hybrid version, which is you do a point capture to start and then a payload to end. You capture the first point, which unlocks the payload, and then the payload you move to the end. And then there's a King of Hill type, where you try to capture a central point. You have to hold it for a specific amount of time collectively throughout the match, and it's best 2 out of 3. So let's go ahead and start with the point capture maps. We have to capture a first point and a second point. This varies slightly depending on which map we're talking about. So the 3 maps that are point capture maps are Hanamura, Temple of Anubis, and Volskaya Industries. So let's talk about my tanks first. My tanks on offense would be definitely Reinhardt on Hanamura. The very first point, you have to go through a very difficult choke point. In fact, there's really only one way to get in as far as the rest of your team. You can have some people get in through a little window that's by the gate, but otherwise, it's really the only way to get in. So you really need the Reinhardt to help push through. You can kind of get through with a Winston. You can put his barrier down, very similar to pushing through with a Reinhardt. The problem with that, at least on quick play, is the Winston barrier doesn't last as long because it doesn't have many hit points and it's not mobile. So basically, you place the bubble down and you got to get everybody in. There's a room to your right, and then there's stairs off to your left that go off somewhere else. So you either have to get people into that room, or have to dive into that room, or you have to basically just push right to the point. And it's just a little bit easier to do on a Reinhardt than it is on a Winston. But I think if you can coordinate properly, you could probably do a little bit better with overall with the Winston there than you can a Reinhardt. And just because of his ability to leap in, take out juicy targets once he leaps in the barrier to let other people in, to really take out the support or turrets, or maybe a bastion that's set up somewhere. Whereas in Reinhardt, he has to slowly push his way in and hope the rest of the team filters in behind him to take out those targets. But usually you need a Reinhardt to get through that. That being said, Temple of Anubis, while it does have a choke point, does have much easier to access side rooms, 2 different directions, so you can kind of split off and go very quickly through those. So you can use a Winston shield to kind of drop in and do that. Volskaya Industries, the first point is very open. It doesn't really have as tough of a checkpoint, a choke point to get through. There is one, but it's not that bad. So you can use a Winston here. Again, I like Winston here because you can jump in, get to some targets, then get on the point and help the barrier to help complete the point. Now, you got to understand this point capture. You don't need to be long on the point in order to capture all the way. So you don't have to have a ton of defense once you're on the point. You just have to get through to the point to start capping it. And usually it's the choke points that's the problem. And if those choke points are, once you get past the choke points, then it's a matter of taking out juicy targets. And I like Winston a little bit better for that. On defense, in all three cases, I like Zarya the best, and the reason is usually with the points you're either playing at the choke or you're playing up a little bit on the defensive points. So she can shoot some artillery with her bombs, basically her secondary shot. And she's the only tank with actual real range to her because of that. So you can send a lot of artillery shots at people that are like right behind the gate, causing a lot of problems as they're trying to push in. You can cause a lot of damage as people are filtering in that small space. Plus, if someone does get through, you can shield somebody from a distance. Which a lot of times on point capture, you're not normally sitting on the point. You're actually positioned in places to defend the choke rather than the point itself. So it's much easier to shield people with her to help protect them if somebody does filter through and starts going after somebody. So that's why I like her for that. For my supports, for Hanamura... Actually, for all three, I'm looking at my list here. So for Hanamura and Temple of Anubis, I really love Symmetra here. These are particular maps in which you can get some really good turret setups. Pretty much all the way through Hanamura. A little bit more difficult on Temple of Anubis. You're pretty much stuck on the point to do that. But still, I like Symmetra pretty much all the way throughout. Vizcaya Industries, I like Zen a little bit better here because it's more open. So, again, because we're going to be a little bit more spread out, it's a little bit easier to do Zenyatta's healing and damage, I think, and wanting his damage there to kind of pick off people as they're coming in than it is pretty much anybody else. Mercy is probably fine on attack. I haven't talked about attack. That's actually the next place I go. On attack, I like Mercy the best. If you do get pelted coming through those choke points, as long as you can keep yourself safe, you can res your team. In most cases, you can probably get that to get that ultimate up very quickly. You can help. You basically raise your team as they're coming in, give them their second push into those choke points. The other thing is, too, you can kind of team up with somebody that's infiltrating in to try to take out turrets and the bastions and stuff like that. And you can help them with the damage boost. Will help take those targets out faster, making it easier for people to pour through the choke points. So between her res and that's why I like her on attack for Hanamura. So that's the point capture. For payload, I don't really have anything specific for the three maps. It's pretty much all the same across the board. For attack, for tanks, Reinhardt, all day, every day. You really need that shield to help protect as you're moving the payload forward. His slowness is not a problem here because the payload moves about as slow as Reinhardt does unlocking. So just... Reinhardt's the best on attacking on this. It just hands down. I can't see him playing another tank primary on payload pushes. On defense, I like Zyra here, but I also think Roadhog is fine. While Roadhog isn't really in my repertoire as of yet, I do think he does very well. Zyra, again, you can kind of barrage the payload and do a lot of damage that way. If anybody else is going in on the payload, you can shield them and yourself, so you can get a lot of damage onto your barriers, which means it's going to increase your damage quite a bit. So I do like her for that. Roadhog I like as well because they're still going to be coming into you in some way, so he'll be able to get up close, be able to hit hooks, to take out the support that's trailing by, like a Lucio or Mercy. Hook them, get them out of the picture, so it makes it harder for them to continue their push because they don't have any support behind them. You could also use it to pull off a Reinhardt with the shield, kind of stun him for a minute, maybe get him out of the equation. In fact, if you can hit your hooks and get him in, I actually like Roadhog slightly better. It's just not in my repertoire yet, which is why I use Zyra. but definitely looking to kind of get more Roadhog in on those situations. Support-wise, on attack, I like Lucio. You're pretty much assured that there's going to be at least a couple people on the payload or by the payload with you, which means your hero is going to be the most effective, which means your sound barrier is going to be most effective. Also, rushing to the payload and getting to the payload when your team does get stopped, and getting your team to kind of come together, take less time to get to the payload, is also better. So, I feel Lucio works really well here to help add hit points to your team while on the payload. As far as defense is concerned, I like Zen here. You're going to be spread out pretty well on defense. You're going to kind of be all over the place. You're going to have your Bastion here, your Widowmaker up here, this place, that place. So you're being able to shoot your Harmony Orb to somebody, pretty much any target is fine as long as you can see them. And then being able to pick off people with Discord Orb is pretty good. You don't really need the res here as much. People aren't going to be close enough together with Lucio. And Symmetra, you're going to have a hard time finding places to put your turrets down. But the teleporter will probably be very much appreciated because usually as the payload, in the beginning of the payload missions, the payload tends to be far away from the spawn. So that teleporter help get you up to the payload faster to do that. But in most cases, just not being able to have good turret places, and the fact that you have to be kind of close up to do your damage does not really also put her for defensive support. So I really think Zen really shines here in that particular game. Really that quick, going back to Symmetra, because I did forget to mention this, their teleport is very key on those point capture, because just being able to play the first point tends to be far away from the spawn, so if you can get that teleporter up, it's much better. Even more so than the beginning of a payload map. So that's another reason I like her a lot on those. Hybrid maps, ones that start out with a point capture into a payload. For my tanks, pretty much it's the same as Reinhardt across the board. While you can get away, I think, with some other tanks, that payload component makes it very important. You could do something different on the point capture, but on attack, if I'm going to die, I'd rather not die as much as possible on attack, because I want to keep everything moving forward. So I want to have Reinhardt at the start, so I have him right for the payload piece. Plus, King's Row has a really difficult beginning push. It has a pretty good choke point, so for that point capture. But once you get past that choke point, you really don't need Reinhardt for the rest of that, but you need him for the payload. So defensively, again, going back to Zyra, I like for the point capture aspect. Again, you can kind of artillery in through. So the choke points and leading up to the point capture, and again, people are going to be filtering in and hitting your barriers, before getting you more damage. So when you do get up close, your primary works really well. Again, you can kind of Roadhog here as well, especially once you start moving into the payload part of the match. But I definitely like to start with Zyra here. Winston a little less so, because on point capture, on defense, you just the barrier may help on the point itself, but as they're coming in, you don't want to just sit on the point and let them filter in. And I don't feel he works well on chokes. You could do some Roadhog here again on the chokes. So that's my tanks. Support-wise, changes depending. King's Row, I want Mercy on attack to start because of the crazy choke at the beginning of King's Row. The rest of it's not as bad, so I don't feel Mercy is needed. I like Zen here on the point part of the catcher. Because the point is pretty wide open, and because it's a little bit less of a choke, I like having the ability to be able to do damage and pick off people than needing the res as much. Plus, as you're moving towards the point, you can use tranquility to be able to kind of to transcendence to be able to the capture the point. You don't need a lot of time on the point to capture it, and a transcendence will get you there. Once you get past the point capture version, though, I like to switch to Lucio. Again, I feel Lucio's really good on payload, so I really like using him on the payload part once if I die leading up while on the payload portion. Support-wise, defensively, Symmetra is fine here. You usually can find places to put the turrets early, and also on the point capture, and also your spawn point from the point is usually pretty far, so that teleporter works really well there. You will tend to be spread out quite a bit, and the shield works. Being able to give everybody a shield at the beginning of the match usually means they're going to have that extra health. You don't have to do anything else with them. And then once you get to the payload, normally on normal payloads it's a lot more open, but I found the payload portion on the hybrids is a little bit more enclosed, so you can find points to put the turrets and still play a little bit forward. You could change over to a Zen at that point, but I think Symmetra is fine for that piece. And then King of the Hill, you have Ilios, Lijiang Tower, and Nepal. So for my tank, again, it's Zara, because she can basically artillery the point as she goes in. Once you're on the point, she can hold the point pretty well between her barrier and putting a barrier in somebody else. I find with a Reinhardt, your shield works on one side of you, and the point tends to have openings all around it. While it's not fully open, it is enclosed, but it does have different points of entry. And if they shoot you, your shield only works on one, so it doesn't work very well. Winston's probably also okay here. However, with Winston, I like to be able to jump into their supports and jump into people, so their supports aren't really coming into the point. Or you find that they're not really piling into the point as much. Or if they're pointing in the point as much, your barrier is really the only thing that's going to help out. Otherwise, it's like kind of a swarm effect, and I feel like it would be good as a second choice for me, but I just don't. I feel Zara can handle that a little bit better than Winston can. But I think Winston has the tools. I just think Zara's a little bit better, and I think Winston works better as a disruption more than holding a point. I think Zara works well at holding a point and capturing the point, which is the reason why I pick her over Winston, because you have to be able to do both. It's not like you can cut in the middle. It's like, okay, we capture the point, I'm going to be a different hero now. Well, no, I'm on this point, I'm not in my spawn. So, and if chances are if you get killed, you probably have to recapture the point. So, and I think Zara works better in that capacity. I think it's a better way to explain that. And then lastly, supports for King of the Hill. I like Lucio and Mercy. I like to start with Lucio. You can use the run speed to get to the point the fastest, as long as they don't have a Lucio themselves, which means getting onto the point and securing the point first puts you a little bit of an advantage, because you can set up on the point and then they have to take you off in order to be able to start scoring their points, meaning that they have to come from behind. So that's a good start. The other is you're more apt to have more people on that point than normal point capture. Like with point capture, you don't need to be there and hold it. You just have to hold it long enough to fill up the timer to be able to move to the next point, and it's very fast. It doesn't take that long. Whereas the point capture, you're trying to build up a bank to win the point, which Lucio is going to help you better on that. The other one I would do with that would be Mercy, because obviously the res is going to be really good once you get the point, but she doesn't give you the advantage of getting to the point first, and she's single target once you do get to the point, so she can't keep everybody up and I think Mercy's mobility makes her being able to jump around, preventing herself from getting tagged by somebody, is more important. It is an important aspect that you're missing once you're on the point. Again, Lucio's going to just do that much better for you. But if you're having problems taking the point, I think Mercy's better to try to get that point capture so you can start racking up those points just because she has the res. Once you got that taken care of, then I think you can switch up to Lucio if you do get picked off at any point, as long as your team's able to continue to keep control of the point. So those are my choices and why those are my choices. As far as what I need to do, I need to play a little bit more Winston, and I like to get some Roadhog in my repertoire as far as tanks is concerned. But other than that, that's really my suggestions for support and tanks. So for the different things. Now, as far as offense and defense of characters, I don't have enough on that to be able to make any kind of assessment. So once I get some more time with that, I'll do a video on those. But for right now, these are what I would go with. So thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll start putting out some gameplay videos of some matches, so we can kind of go over what's good, something good I did, things bad I did to help improve with specific characters and specific situations. So thanks everyone. I'll see you next time.